Hey, why not a double header? It's Sunday morning now, and yes, I'm doing another movie. Oh, this is Chip Cod Roach. And I am kind of taking a risk here. I'm actually reviewing a drama. I know I know what you're thinking. A serious movie, a girl's movie, that doesn't have to be a drama. This is one of the best ones. This is one of the best dramas I've seen. This is A Few Good Men. This is written by the great Aaron Sorkin. And it is directed by Rob Reiner. I'm surprised he allowed the soldiers to have guns. So moving on. This stars Jack Nicholson, the OK Demi Moore, Kevin Bacon, Kevin Pollak, Matt Craven, Alexander Berkeley. Let's see, who else is in this? Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in this. Noah Wiley's in this. Wolfgang Bodison is in this. And Tom Cruise. So this movie here is Loudon. Hold on a second. Okay, so Loudon Downey, there we go, and Corporal Harold Dawson go in to give Private Santiago a code red, which is a disciplinary kind of something you're not supposed to do, but it's what they do to discipline a soldier. The barracks does it kind of behind closed doors. This is to discipline him just because he keeps screwing up. And it turns out he may have a medical condition, which you find out later on, which is what actually causes him to die. So what they actually want to do is just shave his head. So they put a gag on his mouth, they tie him up, he gags, he suffocates, and bad things happen, he dies. So now Harold Dawson and Loudon Downey are now taken into custody. So now it goes through Washington, D.C. So the JAG Corps now has this case. And this happened in Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. So it happened way far away. So there is also motive here because Harold Dawson supposedly shot at his mirror, which in Cuba they have pretty much, it's a wall, what they said was separating the bad guys from the good guys. And Santiago was going to report about a fence line shooting by Harold Dawson so he can get transferred off the base because he kept falling down during runs, he kept complaining about fatigue. So eventually Lieutenant Kendrick, which is played by Kiefer Sutherland, he plays a great villain in this, by the way, and he orders them the code red, which is obviously the disciplinary thing here. So that's when they tie him up. So they take him into custody. Then they put Tom Cruise in charge of this. I'll show you as this goes along. I'm not going to tell you the end as usual. And yes, Jack Nicholson is in this as well. So I will get right to it right now, and I will show you the pictures and explain it that way. It's actually easier if I show the pictures. Okay, so to your left you have PFC Loudon Downey, and to your right you have his, I guess you want to call him commanding officer.
He's a lieutenant, right?
No, that's Corporal.
Corporal.
He's
Okay.
Lance Corporal Harold Dawson, and and both of these guys claim that they were ordered by Lieutenant Jonathan Kendrick, played by Kiefer Sutherland, to tie up Santiago, which they are doing right now. And I will show you the next picture, and that is just the catnip going nuts. And let's meet Lieutenant Joanne Galloway, played by Demi Moore. and she just got the word about the Code Red in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and she wants to be the head counsel for the defendants, Harold Dawson and Loudon Downey. So these guys right here talk about it, and they say no, because she's a good investigator, but she's not a good trial lawyer. So who do they get? We're about to find out. Okay, so this is the intro to Tom Cruise here, and they kind of show him after he's done playing with his softball here and teaching the one guy how to play. Another lawyer comes up to him, that's Matt Craven, and he's trying to get the most punishment for Tom Cruise's client. And Tom Cruise, being kind of like a used car salesman, tells him he's going to go blind on paperwork for about a month. So then they end up settling. He gets restricted duty. What his client did was he thought he was buying marijuana, and he was buying a bag of oregano. So
What the hell's oregano?
it's a spice that you put in spaghetti
Hey,
and
you're
pizza.
gonna smoke it?
He did. Yes, he was. He said his client's a moron. That's not against the law. So he ended up dropping it down to restricted duty, and he did his deal in a softball uniform. So that is pretty much his character. It's fast, it's quick. He does things kind of, he kind of does nickel jobs, we'll say. And Joanne Galloway she's not the lead counsel, but she makes sure that he does his job, which means he has to work extra hard, and he's not real happy about that. So moving on, I will show the next clip here.
Oh, goodness.
Well, everything's just going in line here. So this is Lieutenant Weinberg to your left. Oh, there he comes. Here comes the cat. And obviously you have Tom Cruise on the right. And his name is Daniel Caffey.
Oh boy.
And we might have an animal fight here going on. Anyway, yeah, a lot going on right now. So Lieutenant Weinberg on the left really has no responsibilities here whatsoever. And lead counsel is Danny Caffey, and Joanne Galloway is not happy about that, as you can see why. He waltzes in with an apple in his mouth. He doesn't have a pen. He's unprepared. He seems sloppy. She wants him to find out about this Code Red stuff. He doesn't know what that is. So he's pretty much the Jeremy Jahns of the legal world. So moving on, we'll see if we will have Jack Nicholson's part coming up next. Okay, so these three characters here, you got the middle, these should need no introduction. That is the great Jack Nicholson. And to the right,
And why is he great?
you have his XO, which is J.T. Walsh, that's Markinson. And to your left, you have Kiefer Sutherland playing Lieutenant Jonathan Kendrick. Yes. Him and Jack Nicholson play awesome villains. Kiefer Sutherland is probably one of the best villain actors I have actually ever seen. Speaking of villains, there's something very bad might happen. Sorry, my dog and cat are going at it, as you can see on camera. So, before World War III breaks out over there, World War III is happening right now in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. So what happens is Markinson is explaining the transfer order that Santiago has. This is before he died. He has a transfer order. It talks about the fence line shooting that Dawson had with his mirror, which is with the Cuban officer because they're in Cuba. So he said that Dawson fired first, and that was to get the transfer order. Kind of backfired on him, because now what Jack Nicholson is doing here is he says, let's train the lad. I'm not going to tell you what that means, but let's just say that might hint a little bit that he's maybe going to discipline Santiago in some type of way. So this is the meeting that they're having.
You just said you weren't going to explain it, yet you explained it.
I may have. It's
Continue.
implying. He's not actually admitting to anything.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no plan to have him transferred off the base. And this is very important later on. So I will get to the next picture right about now. Okay, so this is Danny Kaffee introducing himself to his new clients here. And he explains to Dawson, which is to your left, he explains how he does have motive to attack Santiago. Now, Loudon Downey, the guy to your right, doesn't really understand why he was arrested. These guys don't get it. They called the ambulance when he wasn't breathing. They were not real sure what was going on, so there was no intent to harm this guy. They were just going to shave his head, as what they're explaining to Danny Kaffee right here. But the doctor, which I can't wait to get into that, claims that it was poison, but there's it's just speculation at this point.
That's because he doesn't do his job, but that's besides the point.
And I will show the next picture. Let me see what you call Jack Ross in this, because he's not really a DA. He's the... Okay, so Tom Cruise has food in his mouth again.
Shocker.
So this is what he does. He is trying to speed this along and not go in the courtroom, because what he knows is chances are he goes in the courtroom, he's going to lose. So that is Jack Ross to your left, which we have not met yet. That is actor, Kevin Bacon. And he's been in quite a few movies. You might know him from Apollo 13, The Air Up There. Footloose. Okay.
The original?
The original Footloose, yes. He was in that. Oh, and Tremors. I had to mention Tremors.
That
So
movie was
anyways,
weird.
He is Captain Jack Ross. He is the government here, so they're...
The DA of the military.
Yes, the DA of the military going against, Tom Cruise. So he actually got Jack Ross down, instead of life in prison, got his clients down to 12 years. His clients don't like that. They want to go all the way with this. They want to go back to the Marine Corps. No, 12.
Okay.
Or did he go down to 2?
It was 2 to 3.
You're right.
And
I'm wrong.
And if they did it, they'd be out in 6 months.
Yes, that's right. He got it down to 2 years, but they would be out in 6 months. So it did change a little bit. Because when it was 12, then he got it down to 2 because he mentioned Kendrick. That's what happened. He mentioned somebody that Danny Kaffee didn't know anything about. So he did. So then he dropped it from 12 to 2, and they'll be out in 6 months, depending on good behavior. I don't know how military prisons work. So I will go to the next picture. You don't like Jack Nicholson?
Not enough.
So now this is Danny Kaffee meeting Lieutenant Kendrick and Colonel Jessup, played by Jack Nicholson, who was the Joker in the 1989 Batman. It's there. So
I don't see it.
it's there. Imagine him with white makeup, green hair, and a hat. So
I still don't see it.
So this is him playing another bad guy. And what Danny Kaffee is doing in this scene here, he wants to see how agitated he can get this guy. And he does learn a little bit that he's got a little bit of a short fuse, and this guy might get himself into trouble. Now, what's interesting about this movie is this is not a normal court drama movie. You can't just go after military people like you can just go after a civilian. if you ask them directly if they ordered something, you can get in trouble if they don't ask it. And this is a guy that's going to be the head of the national security. So he's a highly, decorative officer. He's got a lot of success. So there is not a lot of room for error when questioning him in court. It's actually a risk just to bring him into a courtroom. And that goes the same for Lieutenant Kendrick, who is a weasel. He's not well liked, but he is a successful military officer. So he has to be careful even with Kendrick. And I don't think the judge really liked him much either. But we'll get to that later on. Oh, and Markinson goes away after the scene. He goes AWOL. A lot going on. So this scene is sort of important here because if you're viewing this for the first time, he actually he tells his clients about the 2 years, and he is saying that they'll be home in 6 months, and they were not happy about it. So Caffey decides that he wants to get them another lawyer. So Joanne and Lieutenant Weinberg are sitting there wondering if he's going to show up. He obviously does. And he also goes into a plea of not guilty, which means they are going for the long haul. They're going for the trial. So this makes it interesting because they really need to bring their A game to win this case.
And he never been in a trial day in his life.
And he's never been in a courtroom in a day of his life except when he got his driver's license revoked. This is Danny Caffey's apartment. This is where they work night in and night out, trying to win this very lengthy court case. Pretty much throwing up a Hail Mary pass. So this could be obviously a lengthy trial. A lot of work hours going into this. There's a lot of preparing. They learn how to. That's the other thing too. They're learning how to. Weinberg is good at getting them to prepare a witness. And the first guy that they're going to go after is the doctor. So they have a lot of questions for him. And they have to do this pretty much drinking the disgusting Yoo-Hoo that Danny Caffey has in his apartment. All he has is Yoo-Hoo and I think cereal or something like that. So they bring a lot of Chinese food. It's a good thing the courtroom has a bathroom. Next picture. This quacky clown is played by Christopher Guest. This is the doctor, the military doctor, by the way.
Who did not do his job at all.
So he gave Santiago a clean bill of health. Now what it showed in the charts is that he suffers from shortness of breath, fatigue, and chest pains. So this is actually a medical condition called lactic acidosis. And that's what actually that could have caused his death, which is what they're trying to get this guy with. And the reason why they think he said poison is pretty much to cover his butt. Because if he's suffering from all that, because when they stuffed the rag in his mouth, the lactic acidosis is actually what killed him. And in being in the military, you should not have that.
And what is it?
It burns sugar instead of oxygen. Or, yeah, I think I said that right.
Something like that.
Burned sugar instead of oxygen. So that sped up the process, and that's how he died. But if you have these conditions, you should not be in the military. And that's when Daniel Caffey attacks the doctor. Problem is they had him. And Joanne Galloway, this is where her weaknesses come in as a trial lawyer.
She doesn't shut up.
She didn't shut up, as much women don't. So what happens is...
Oh, you're dead.
So what she said was that she strenuously objects, And that's not what you say. You just say it one time and that's it, but you kept it up.
This will be his last video.
Oh my god, I'm joking.
Don't worry.
Okay, this isn't creepy at all. How would you like it if somebody's in the back of your car? Well, this is Markinson, the guy that disappeared, decides to tell Danny Caffey here that he was not going to be transferred off the base. So he decides to subpoena Colonel Markinson, and he puts him in a motel, and he wants him in court Thursday morning at 10 a.m. to testify. We'll find out what happens.
You forgot to mention he signed the paper 5 days after the dude died.
You started the washing machine.
So he actually signed the transfer order 5 days after Santiago passed away. And this is what he tells Danny Caffey. So he's got some real huge ammo here for him. But let's find out what happens. So as you can see, Lieutenant Kendrick is now on the stand. And he already does not want to be there. It's pretty much like dragging a 3-year-old to church. He's very unhappy, very cranky, and he's going to cry at every little thing. So Danny Caffey really just wants to agitate him. He really gets under his skin, and he pushes the boundaries more than he really should have. The judge doesn't like it, but he gives him a little bit of latitude just based on his facial expressions. He lets him get away with a little bit more. So at the end of this, Jack Ross does have to ask him if he did order the code red, and nervously he does say that he told him not to touch Santiago, but by his facial expressions you can tell that he's holding back a little bit. So this is a very good scene to watch. This is something that you really do have to see for yourself. And I'm only going to show a couple more clips because I'm not going to tell you how this movie ends if you haven't seen it.
Put the lid in the box. Julie.
Okay, so this is him, well, Jack Nicholson's XO, Lieutenant Markinson, and he is getting ready to go to court. So we will find out what his testimony is, but I'm not going to tell you any of it because you are going to have to find out for yourself. So I will get to the last picture coming up. Okay, so this is a very interesting scene here. This is Loudon Downey, and he has a very slow farmer type of voice, so he doesn't really fully understand questions coming at him. So he's one that Captain Ross likes having on the stand because he feels like he can kind of trick him a little bit. And what they find out is the time that it took them to get to the barracks and what time Lieutenant Kendrick talked to them doesn't add up. So what you find out in this scene here is that Lance Corporal Dawson orders him to order the code red, which changes their story a little bit. Lieutenant Kendrick supposedly...
Oh, it's a famine.
Okay, so...
I gotta go have a cookie. I can too much work.
So what happens here is Dawson ordered Downey to order the code red.
No, he told Downey that Kendrick told him to do the code red.
Oh, yes. I forgot where I left off. Okay, so now that kind of makes things interesting here because nobody was really ready for that. But you still have Markinson, don't we? You will find out. Say this is where they... Well, yeah, I'm going to do that too. He looks very happy right about now. So what he decides to do is he's going to put Jessup on the stand Now, when they first went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, something I forgot to show the audience here is that the part that I found interesting when I first watched this movie is when he looked at Santiago's locker, the shaving cream was still nicely placed. His uniform was still straight up in his closet. So he was not packed at all. There was nothing packed. It was all out. I noticed that.
But yeah, he was supposed to leave at 6 o'clock that morning.
But yeah, he was supposed to leave at 6 o'clock that morning. So what Danny finds out is that it finally, I don't know why it took this long.
Because he looks in his own closet.
Well, I know that, but he looked at his own closet and then it just magically clicked.
Lord, save me, Jesus.
So then that's what he decides to try to get Colonel Jessup with. So he decides to go all the way. Does it work out? We won't know. But I will show you in just a second. And Batman probably took a while to film.
He still doesn't look like...
Okay. Right. So Colonel Jessup does make it to court. And what happens? You're going to have to watch it for yourself. Because I am not going to say a word.
Just say he gets very angry.
He does get angry. That's all I'm going to say, is he gets mad. So, this movie was, of course, like I said, directed by Rob Reiner. The only thing I forgot to look up is how many awards this won, but this was a major blockbuster when this came out in 1992. This had to compete with Aladdin. I know, it's very different movies. Aladdin came out, Beethoven came out. I just named 2 kids' movies compared to this very adult movie. And like I said, Alan Sorkin did a great job writing this. I'm sorry, Rob Reiner directed it. But all of the characters work, all of them. There was not a character I did not like in this movie. This was very, very well made. Well, so I am actually I'm going to grade this as a solid A. This movie is just rated R for language. That's it. That's the only thing that's bad in this. That one little scene at the beginning wasn't that violent. They didn't even show blood, which is probably a Rob Reiner thing. He doesn't like the sight of it. He doesn't like guns. I'm very surprised that he did a movie like this. Now, Alan Sorkin, on the other hand, wrote The West Wing. He wrote Moneyball. He wrote American President. So he's a very successful writer. He's probably one of the best. So this movie came out in 1992. So yes, it did have to compete with a lot of big movies as well. It had to compete with Silence of the Lambs. That was probably the biggest seller at that point, besides Aladdin. That kind of did it too. Oh yeah, League of Their Own also came out that year. And Batman Returns. So yes, thank you very much for watching.
Home Alone did too. Thank you very much.
Home Alone 2 came out as well. Sorry, we had to throw that one in there. Oh, and My Cousin Vinny. Had to throw out another one.
Well, that's the case. Why don't you throw off Sister Act too? Because it's not there too.
And Wayne's World.
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Continue.
Alright, so do not forget to comment and remember to subscribe. And yes, I'm glad to do an actual adult movie with complicated dialogue than stupid Deadpool. Thank you for watching.